Warning: the following episode of the FrEEK Show is a true crime video. It contains topics of abuse, assault, and the deaths of adults, seniors, and children. Viewer discretion is advised. Yeah, she. Welcome back to the FrEEK Show, she. True crime edition, she. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The FrEEK Show. I'm Munk, and I'm joined once again with Moose. She's back. And today we got another true crime video for you guys. And this one is definitely an interesting one. Today we are going to be talking about Nannie Doss, aka the Giggling Granny, the Giggling Nannie, the Lonely Hearts Killer, the Jolly Blackwidow, and Lady Bluebeard. I don't understand that last one, but apparently that was one of her nicknames.
I mean, what a nickname to have, though.
On top of all the others. Now, you do know a little bit about Nannie Doss.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can go ahead and just chime in anytime that you want to, giving any information that I end up leaving out. If there's something that you didn't know, feel free to be like, whoa, what the fuck? Alright. Nannie Doss was born Nancy Hazel on November 4th, 1905 in Blue Mountain, Alabama, to parents Louisa and James Hazel. Which I heard that James was actually a stepfather. I'm not quite sure, though. I only heard that from one.
I believe so.
I only heard about it like once or twice. So typically things like that I leave kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I think that he was a grandfather.
A grandfather?
Not grandfather, a stepfather. But I am not for sure. I can't remember anything saying specifically like if he was or not.
That I only heard it from one source, like one or two sources out of all the different sources that I looked into, and so I'm not entirely quite sure about that myself. But either way though, James was a controlling and abusive father and husband. He was a drunk. James would also prioritize making the children work the family farm instead of going to school. Nancy would later earn the nickname Nannie due to her sweet disposition, and Nannie would even drop out of school after the 6th grade to work on the farm. When Nannie was 7 years old, her and her family were riding on a train to go to their uncle's house when the train halted quickly to a stop, and Nannie hit the front of her head on the train itself. Which, that can hurt. I've hit my head on the train before. It can hurt. The next thing she knew, she was actually waking up at her uncle's house. So it hit her so bad that she actually was knocked unconscious. For years, she would suffer headaches, blackouts, and depression. Now, as I said, James was very controlling. He wouldn't let his daughters wear makeup, dress in any clothing that he deemed inappropriate, and they weren't allowed to really even have friends, especially of the male persuasion. He also forbade them from going to any social gatherings such as church events or school dances. Nannie ended up discovering, though, her favorite pastime, which was reading her mother's romance magazines, fantasizing about finding her Prince Charming. She particularly loved the Lonely Hearts column, which it was kind of like the Craigslist, personal ads.
Yeah. And, from everything that I know, he was so, insistent on not letting them, wear makeup or, have any kind of, attractive clothing or hang out with dudes, was because that he believed that it would keep them from being
molested and
attacked.
Raped and
yeah.
Even though apparently it didn't do any good because there was reports that things happened to Nannie by multiple men in the community.
Yeah.
When she was 16, she was working at a linen factory, and that's where she met Charlie Braggs. After only knowing each other a few months, he asked James for her hand in marriage, to which James surprisingly said yes. In my opinion, it's like, okay, you go and you're trying to be all that protective, but then, no.
Yeah.
You know?
That kind of got thrown out the window super fast.
Seriously. I heard one theory that it could have been a case of like, well, because she was the oldest of like 4 or 5 children, I think. So maybe it was a case of like struggling family, and he was trying to be like, get out so I can take care of everybody else, maybe? Who knows?
Which, in all fairness, like, mom and dad knew each other, like, in passing, but they got engaged after, like, I think a couple of months of dating, like 2-3 months of dating.
But they at least knew each other for a while, though. She had only known this guy for a few months.
Yeah. Which is wild to think of.
Oh.
Like, that would be meeting someone now and in like 2 months being like, getting married.
Pretty much. But just wait, because the story of Nannie gets pretty crazy when it comes to bromance. So, Nannie and Charlie married in 1921. She moved in with Charlie, who lived with his own single and very controlling mother, whom Nannie said was as controlling as her own father. She didn't want Nannie leaving the house, she wasn't allowed to have any visitors, and when she did, they always had to be gone by a certain time. Even Nannie's own mother wasn't allowed to be there at night. Between 1923 and 1927, so just 4 years, they would have 4 children of their own. All girls. However, both Nannie and Charlie turned to alcohol to try and ease the stress. Both Charlie... yeah.
Sorry, I related to that.
No, so did I. Both Charlie and Nannie ended up cheating on each other. Charlie would often disappear for days on end. One day, tragedy struck. When Charlie returned home from work one day, he discovered that the 2 middle children had become deathly ill. The 2 children died, suspected of food poisoning. Charlie then left with their oldest daughter, Malvina, leaving Nannie with the infant Florine. His mother, who was still living in the house with Nannie, would soon die after he left. Charlie returned about a year later, telling Nannie that in exchange for a divorce, he would give back Malvina. And by the way, he came back with another woman in tow. Like, he already had another woman on the side, and who had a kid of her own. They soon divorced, and Nannie returned home to her parents with her 2 little ones. In 1929, Nannie met Robert Franklin Harrelson, and the 2 were married after a couple of months. Much to Nannie's dismay, though, she learned quickly that Harrelson was an alcoholic with a criminal record of assault. Despite their issues, though, the couple remained married for 16 years. Long time.
Wasn't she an alcoholic at that point, though,
yes.
too? So, like,
but he was also
was probably
like,
off-putting, but like...
he was also, again, was like very abusive. Like, he even had a record for assault.
Yeah. But like the whole alcoholism thing, I mean, like, that probably was kind of brushed to the side were it not for the fact that he was abusive.
Yeah.
Not worried about that. We'll unload that later.
In 1943, Malvina gave birth to her own child, whom she named Robert. 2 years after Robert's birth, she gave birth to another baby. The second labor had been a rough one, leaving Malvina exhausted and groggy from the ether that the doctors used on her. Malvina said that she had foggy memory and possibly a dream of her mother sticking a hairpin or a hat pin into the newborn soft spot. The baby died there in the hospital to unknown causes. And by the way, I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly Nannie was the one that told the rest of the family that the baby had died, and she was holding a pin, apparently, when she told them.
I do remember hearing something about that, but like there was no like solid evidence of whether or not that happened.
Exactly.
But honestly, like with this bitch's record, wouldn't surprise me.
Given everything else that I learned about her, I wouldn't put it past. So Malvina and the father would separate, probably from grief, and Malvina started dating a soldier. Nannie greatly disapproved of the new boyfriend, and after one argument about it, Malvina went to visit her father, leaving little Robert with her mother. Robert ended up dying that night. The doctors say of asphyxia. Nannie would end up collecting on a life insurance that she took out on him for a sum of $500, which would roughly be about $7,000 in today's currency. In 1945, when Japan surrendered to the Allied powers, people partied, and as a former soldier, Harrelson was one of the partiers. Supposedly, he came home drunk and demanded sex from Nannie. When she tried to decline, he took her by force. That was the last straw for Nannie. She found a bottle of his whiskey out in the garden and put some rat poison into it. Harrelson died later that evening. Due to his drinking nature, doctors thought he just drank himself to death. So Nannie then took to traveling for a bit. There's no real record as far as like where all she went, but the next thing that we have here is that she ended up meeting Arlie Lanning, which, much like her previous husband, through the Lonely Hearts ad in Lexington, North Carolina. The two married 3 days later. I told you.
I just want to say this woman works faster than any lesbian I've ever met.
Good night, everybody. Oh boy. Where was I? Also, much like her previous husband, Arlie was an alcoholic womanizer. This time, though, it was Nannie who would disappear for long periods of time, sometimes even months. She played the part of the good housewife when she was home, though. A short time later, Arlie passed away. There had been a flu going around, and it was chalked up to him being in poor health due to being an alcoholic, and his body wasn't strong enough to fight the illness. So his house, he actually left it to his sister. However, just days before the property was to change hands, it mysteriously burned down.
This one is like a walking red flag.
Just wait!
Like, you would think that at this point someone would, like,
You
know.
would think. You really
Then
would
again,
think.
I'm dumb as shit. I dated 4 walking red flags and never thought about it. Just not a thing.
Word. I can relate. But the house mysteriously burned down, and Nannie collected the insurance on it. She would then move in with Arlie's sick and elderly mother, who shortly ended up dying in her sleep. Nannie's sister, Dovey, was ill, So Nannie left North Carolina and moved in with her to help take care of her. I believe it said that she had cancer or leukemia, but I'm not quite certain. But
Well,
she.
leukemia is a type of cancer.
It's alright. Alright, compose yourself. Because
I'm so
guess
sorry.
what? Dovey ended up dying shortly after Nannie moved in.
Of course.
Of course.
I don't know what else to expect at this point.
So, Nannie ended up joining a dating service called the Diamond Circle Club, where she met Richard L. Morton. The two married in 1952. Richard wasn't an alcoholic, but he was a cheater. In January 1953, Nannie's mother Louisa came to stay with them. I'm not sure if it was just a visit. I heard different reports of it being just a visit, others saying that she was sick and needed to be looked after. The stories kind of vary there, so I'm not quite sure. But one thing that the stories don't vary on is that shortly after Louisa died, within a short time of arriving. Then, in May of 1953, Morton passed away as well. Nannie then met Samuel Doss, a Nazarene minister who was a widow himself. His wife and 9 other children tragically died in a tornado. Nannie and Samuel married in June of 1953. Keep in mind, her last husband died in May.
I'm sorry. I know I'm not good at math. That seems a little soon.
Well, I mean, 2 husbands ago, and it was 2 days after meeting.
You right?
Okay, so Samuel didn't approve of her romance novels, though. And he wouldn't let her drink, or watch TV, or read anything unless it was for educational purposes.
Oh, so he finna go real quick.
It's also said that he enforced a bedtime of 9:30. Like, he went to bed at 9:30 and she came to bed with him. She wasn't allowed to stay up.
So he finna go real quick.
And he also wouldn't let her touch the finances at all, and he was super frugal.
That might work with me because I suck at math.
Nannie even reportedly left him at one point and wouldn't come back until he put her on the bank account. She also convinced him to take out 2 life insurances on himself, with her as the only beneficiary.
Oh, there it went.
In September of 1953, Doss became ill and went to the hospital. He had a brain. He was just like, I don't feel right. This is wrong. I'm going to the hospital. He was diagnosed with a digestive tract infection. He was treated and then released on October 5th. Samuel Doss died October 12th, 1954. Or maybe it was supposed to be 53. I may have it wrong here in my notes. Yeah, I definitely have it wrong. Okay, he died within 5 days of coming home. Like 7 days, most. Doctors were super suspicious about this. They had to ask Nannie for permission to do an autopsy, though. It was just the way that the laws went at the time. So keep in mind, all the other deaths in her past, no autopsies.
Seriously, like, for some reason we're super suspicious on this one. Not that the other 6 husbands that you've had have died in suspicious terms or anything, but we're gonna check this one out now.
Well, so you would think that Nannie would just say no, right? But she said yes. And signed the papers immediately, apparently stating, of course, what if this happens to someone else? This could save their life. The autopsy found a huge amount of arsenic in Samuel's system. Nannie was arrested. At first, when she was being questioned, she denied all of it. This is when the police found records of all the other deaths in her wake.
Not that sneaky about it, sis.
Oh, just wait. She tries. When questioned about them, Nannie still denied being involved in their deaths, and even tried denying that she even knew Morton. When presented with the evidence of their marriage and of his death, she responded with, "Oh, I guess you got me on that one. I guess I did know him."
She gave up the bag so fucking fast. Oh my god. She really just said, "Oh, my bad, I guess you're right."
Well, what was she supposed to do at that point?
It's not like she, like, went to the grocery store and got, like, white bread instead of wheat bread or some shit. She was married to the man. Like, records. It was like, oh, you got me there.
Yep. So, Nannie would then go on to say that she would confess on one condition. She wanted the romance magazine that she had brought with her to the police station. They gave it to her, and she confessed to killing 4 of her husbands and her mother-in-laws. There's also varied stories that say that she confessed to killing her family members as well, but it's also reported that she said that she never harmed any of her blood kin. And doctors and lawyers say that her demeanor changed whenever she was asked about her family.
I know she was convicted in the end of 11.
She actually was only convicted of 1. She was
not convicted, but, like, admit to 11.
Apparently 11, supposedly 12. But you see, when discussing the deaths of her husband, she would giggle. She would laugh and make jokes about it, being like, "Oh yeah, he loved that pie I used to bake." Ha 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 ha.
Me too.
And it was so unsettling for people to hear about her acting like that and for people to witness. There was zero remorse and only humor. She was sentenced to life in prison, only charged with the death of Samuel Doss. The judge did not want to give her the death penalty due to her gender. He didn't want her to be the first state, or the first woman in the state, to be sentenced to execution. While in prison, Nannie reportedly joked with the kitchen staff, asking if they needed any help in the kitchen. They would always say no. It was also stated that she would say she wished that either God would just take her, or that one of the other states will prosecute her and give her the death penalty. She would die in prison from leukemia in 1965. And she would forever be known as the Giggling Granny. So, did you learn anything new in this one?
A few things. You got me there. Oh my god.
That was literally her reaction. She was just like, "Oh, I guess I did know him. I was married to him, I guess." I mean, you got the proof saying it. I can't deny it.
Listen, I wish that I could forget some of the guys that I've dated that easily. Really, I do.
Especially since she was just married to him a month before she married Samuel.
They're like, "Nah, sis, we got receipts." And she's like, "Oh." She said, "Wait, back that up. My bad. First of all."
Ah, yeah, got me again. Well,
Where
apparently
begging?
they let her have romance novels in the
Oh my
prison.
god.
Oh, here's something else. I didn't actually put this in just because I'm not quite sure if this is true or not. But there are reports that she already had somebody lined up to marry after Samuel died.
Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me.
She was talking. She was talking with at least one other person, possibly two, and she was showing interest in marrying both of them. One of them was like, "Hell no," and the other one was just like, "Oh yes, I want to marry you." And then as soon as the story hit, they were like, "Man, I am the luckiest fucking person alive right now." And apparently, her first husband knew that there was something wrong with her, which is why he asked for a divorce. But he didn't come out and say that until after she was already like imprisoned and being convicted and
Oh
on
yeah.
trial and everything. So
Yeah.
there's a lot
To
of
where she
debate
couldn't
of
get to him.
well, there's there's a lot of debate of whether or not he was actually scared of her, or if he was just trying to ride the hype train.
I think honestly, like at some point in a relationship, if something is that wrong with somebody, you know. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
not until it's like too late, but you know.
Yeah.
Like deep down, my bad. Like deep down inside, you're like, this bitch crazy.
I've been there. Um,
We've both been there with your girlfriends.
word.
How many times have I looked at you like a week into your relationship and been like, this bitch crazy?
Many times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, that's the story of the giggling granny. I guess she did go and blame a lot of it on her head injury that she got when she was a child.
Yeah, I mean,
Which I
that's a.
guess with where it was hit as well, it does like part like has something to do with like the behavioral patterns or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
there's also theories that her first two kids, that well, not her first two kids, but the two middle kids that died. There's a lot of thought that maybe that was an accident, that she didn't intentionally kill them, but she was trying to make them
Yeah.
sick so that she can take care of them and look to be like the good mom and stuff like that. Munchausen
And it just
syndrome
kind
by
of.
proxy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And instead of just making them a little sick with like a small bout of food poisoning or something, she went too far.
A little bit too far,
And
yeah.
it.
That's the theory on those two, was that she was trying to make it look like, oh, they're sick, I have to take care of them. Because I guess that the oldest daughter was actually sick. Malvina was sick, so
Yeah.
she didn't eat the food that the other two kids ate. She just had toast. And then the other child was still a newborn. Florine was a newborn.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the theory. A game theory. No, I'm just joking.
Get out. YouTube, don't copyright strike us.
Oh god, what is wrong with us today?
Matt, Pat, I'm so sorry.
but um, but yeah, what are your thoughts on this? Other than sometimes bitches be crazy.
Sometimes bitches be crazy.
In the words of
I
another
mean,
YouTuber, Philip DeFranco, you don't gotta be a woman to be a bitch, but bitches are crazy.
um, I, I mean, I don't know. On one hand, I do think that maybe it was like just speculation that she killed some of her family members because
There,
I know
it
that,
does look really bad on her behalf. I will say that
yeah.
it definitely does look like she probably did. But I mean, even the doctors and psychiatrists and everything like that, they were like, "No, you ask her about her family, and she stops being all charming and happy-go-lucky and everything like that. There's signs of grief there."
And it's either that she, because sometimes, like, head injuries can cause, like, lapses in judgment. And
Yeah.
sometimes stuff that's a little more severe than that. So it could have been just a snap moment of, like, a lapse in judgment when it happened, if it was her family members. And
Especially
that's why
since,
she had so much grief.
aside from the kids, the mom and the sister, they were both very ill. So another theory is that she may have been trying to, like, ease their suffering and just end
Like
it
a
quicker.
mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that on one hand that's possible, and on the other hand, like, I mean, it seemed that her family had a lot of medical issues anyways. So that could have been, some of it. She could have not killed her family, and it could have
Oh,
genuinely
yeah.
been medical issues.
It could have been. I mean, aside from the kids, but
Well, yeah. But I mean, like, for the most part, it doesn't look good on her.
no.
And her, I mean, if you gotta kill your husband, you gotta kill your husband.
I mean, especially the first husband that she killed. Like, I get that completely.
Yes.
Like,
Okay,
if your husband
understand
fucking
that.
rapes you, like, go ahead and kill his ass, as far as I'm concerned. Disclaimer: we do not condone murder.
We.
Shh. They can't find out about the bodies. But yeah, it was definitely a very interesting case to look into. Nowhere near as hard as the last one was.
This one, and while it is kind of like, still, there should be respect for the families and
definitely.
stuff. Like, this was more, I mean, I guess it was easier to make jokes about because, like, come on.
just come on. How could we
Come on.
not?
I mean, honestly, it was easier to make jokes because it's something that, it was solved. It was
Yes.
something that, like, people have been talking about for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Something that, not only,
And for the most part, we were just making fun of her, which, I mean, I have no problem making fun of a serial killer.
and it wasn't us making fun of, like, the dead or something, disrespecting
No.
the dead. It was us cracking jokes about her or cracking jokes about ourselves.
Again,
So, I mean, I
we
feel
have
like
a
that
nervous
was-
habit of doing that. It's a defense mechanism.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it, I think, for this week. Next week, we'll do something a lot more lighthearted. I don't think either of us have any idea what yet, but it's definitely going to be a lot more lighthearted. And Moose actually has the next true crime video already planned. So that
Yep.
everybody should be looking forward to next month.
It's gonna be an interesting one.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe so that you can watch that. Please, especially if you made it this far, hit the like. And then don't forget to follow us on Twitter and everything. And
If you have any suggestions, please
oh,
tell us in
please,
the comments. We love
Please.
hearing suggestions from you guys, and we love to do videos on stuff you guys have suggested, kind of give you a little bit of content that you ask for.
we are total fan service. OnlyFans YouTube edition. No. Okay. But yes, please give us suggestions. especially with true crime stuff, because I don't know anything about true crime. I know she knows a little bit about it, but I know zero about it. So suggestions, bring them on. Any
If you
weird,
have
creepy,
anything that you
kooky
think
stuff.
is, yeah, anything that's genuinely gonna scare one of us,
Oh, please, if something's gonna
I'm a
scare
little
us.
more easily frightened
A little?
than he is. Eat, suck a dick. It doesn't take much to like kind of set me off, especially where I'm like, I film upstairs with a ring light on by myself on the opposite end of the house from anyone else in the house. So like, it doesn't take much to like genuinely get me paranoid and freak me out. Um, by all means, if you can find something that you think is gonna freak me out, please tell us.
Please. Like you should have seen her. Well, I think you guys did see her reactions
Some of it.
when she was watching Ghost Watch. But yeah, that's about it for this week, you guys. Stay spooky and true crimey.
Bye. True crime.
I don't know, dude.